custom, the confiscation of lands would not have severed the connection with the foreshore.
And it's going to be interesting to see what kind of precedent that sets for hearings that take place in other lohe.
In 2005, Labour's attempt to settle the foreshore issue sparked huge protest. National then changed the law, and this ruling is the first major test of that since then.
It's good for everyone else in the sense that it provides some certainty around how this legislation is going to be enacted.
The seafood industry was worried its activities might be restricted.
This isn't something that stops activities from taking place. It's something that allows it to take place in partnership.
And for Graham, it means more certainty for his mokopuna.
It means that that's one less fight they had to do in the future.
A welcome line in the sand today for Whakatohea. Simon Mersep, One News.
The government says it's been waiting for the court's ruling. Treaty of Waitangi Negotiations Minister Andrew Little says it's a big decision and he needs time to consider and digest it before commenting in detail. Iwi leaders have slammed the government for dragging its heels in addressing Māori rights and interest over water. The criticism delivered as iwi say its relationship with the government isn't as strong as it should be. Here's political reporter Mikey Sherman.
A room packed with iwi heavyweights and senior Māori ministers throwing the issue of water rights and the gloves are off.
Simple answer is the government isn't moving fast enough.
Successive governments, including National and Labour, accused of dragging the chain. Māori have waited long enough. Why is it still taking so long?
Look, it's taken a long time because there are really challenging issues to try and resolve.
One of the challenges is that iwi leaders question this government's approach. When Labour came into office, it made a point of dealing with a broader spread of Māori on water rights, a breakdown in relationship with hapu and iwi, which has never fully healed.
It's really ensuring that the government recognise the place, the rights and interests of iwi.
We're dealing with a Labour government, and a Labour government prefers to deal with Māori rather than hapu and iwi.
There are Māori landowners who organise themselves as trusts and corporations who have legitimate interests in relation to water.
It's been 2 years since the Waitangi Tribunal recommended co-governance for Māori over water and an allocation percentage to hapu and iwi.
It's really not about the percentage that's allocated to hapu and iwi within the catchment. It's the right to be part of the decision to allocate, and that's what we're asking for.
Until that happens, iwi believe they're being undermined. Some might say that's quite a scathing review of that relationship.
It's an honest review. We've got to be pushing towards, as this government has said, a real honest and earnest relationship rather than one that's just bound around lip service.
Today's conversation with iwi leaders have identified that there's still a lot of water to go under the bridge in order to get to the right place. But it's an important issue.
And that's one thing everyone agrees on. Mikey Sherman, One News.
The Christchurch City Council is spending $10 million to restore its old debating chamber. The historic building was damaged in the quakes and has been sitting empty for a decade. But as Ryan Boswell reports, the council won't even be using it.
One of Christchurch's grand old dames has been left waiting.
Her groom has arrived. He's a handsome fella.
Broken in the quakes, the old municipal chamber has been held up by steel bracing for the last 10 years. Now it's being wrapped in scaffolding and inside prepped for repair.
So we start by very carefully taking down all the heritage trims and mouldings, new foundations to go in, and then shear walls, a bit of structural steel, and then bracing to the ceiling of every floor.
Opened in 1887, it was the first Queen Anne-style building in Aotearoa, in the centre of local government for almost 40 years.
The city grew from decisions made in this building, which is pretty exciting.
Sam Roth is overseeing the restoration. He's done the same with other heritage buildings in the quake-damaged city, but this time he set up a trust and signed a 50-year lease with the council.
So it's a very long-term arrangement, and we will use the skills that we have around us through that time and in future years to activate the building and keep it as a meaningful centrepiece on the Avon River.
He'll have to maintain the building and find tenants, while ratepayers will fork out $10 million for
sensible occupation of the building, so that the public are able to see the building in its true form.
The repairs are expected to take 2 years.
They're very, very precious.
Every detail methodically mapped so this dame can be returned to her former glory. Ryan Boswell, One News.
The old dame might be kept up a bit tonight because Christchurch is gearing up to host the Super Rugby Aotearoa final with a sellout home crowd ready to watch the Crusaders take on the Chiefs. Jordan Opitz at Orange Theory Stadium for us. Hi Jordan, how's it looking down there tonight?
Yeah, well, fans are slowly starting to make their way in, Melissa. A big night here at Head indeed. Come kick-off, there'll be a full house, 17,000 fans to see if the Crusaders can make it 5 in a row. There's no denying it's a tough ask for the Chiefs. I mean, the Crusaders are virtually unbeaten here, but in saying that, the Chiefs have had the most wins over the Crusaders out of any other super outfit. We asked Razor Robertson, the coach of the Crusaders, earlier in the week, what is it about the Chiefs that gets under the Crusaders' skin? And the best way he described it is that the two teams are like siblings and they know how to push each other's buttons, and no doubt we'll see plenty of that tonight.
And away from the rugby, something a bit different tonight. Super Rugby's gone all Super Bowl with a halftime show.
Yes, to my left, your right, there's a stage set up for Drax Project, who will headline the pre-match and halftime show. They'll also be joined by 150 dancers out in the middle at halftime. Look, it's a way for the Crusaders to give back to their fans who turn up rain, hail, shine, sometimes sleet here in Christchurch, week in, week out.
We want everyone to walk away from a Crusaders game thinking that was awesome. We just want them to have the best experience they can. Obviously our stadium, it's not the best one in New Zealand, so we want to give them the best experience that we can with what we've got.
And listening to them at their sound check today, they will not disappoint their fans. More on what goes on behind the scenes to get Orange Theory ready for finals match footy later in sport.
Mahi Jordan, you'll see you soon. As the death toll continues to mount following the Myanmar coup, we meet young protesters who are risking their lives to get their messages heard internationally. Chinese space junk is rocketing towards Earth. Could it be heading our way?
And after a 13-year hiatus, the New Zealand Bartender of the Year Awards are back. We're finding out what it takes to be the best mixologist in the country.
Tonight on One, Nigel is here to show us all love and tender.
With regard to the 2 people who died, do you want to watch Aliens in the Attic? I think it's a shame to come out and say 2 people have died after they were vaccinated, and then qualify it and say, well, we don't really know what the connection was. I think they should wait until they have more knowledge.
Well, my take on what they were saying was that they seem to deny that there's any causal relationship between the vaccine and the deaths.
Yeah.
So why bring it up and why put them together?
Yes, and why sort of blast it out in the news before they have done their homework? I think it's a jolly shame, because some people are just very unsure that they want it. Some people are quite anti. I think they said that the 2 people were in their 80s. Did you hear that?
Oh, I didn't hear anything about that.
Yes, it's a stupid way of doing things.
I think possibly they're just being sensational.
Yes.
Maybe they just didn't think. You just don't know, really, do you? Oh, giddy aunt.
What'd you say?
I just said giddy aunt.
Paul's got a thing like that where you light a fire and you get it all hot and then you cook things in it.
Oh, how ridiculous. Is it the weather? It's the...
In Myanmar, more than 750 people have now been killed since the military seized power 3 months ago. With the internet effectively blocked, borders closed and many journalists detained, some people are documenting their ongoing resistance, including one young musician. The BBC's Rebecca Henschke reports.
In the middle of this, we meet 18-year-old Pone. His generation is fired up, defiant and determined to bring back democracy.
The military have messed with the young generation because, we are not the same as what we have faced in the past. We have already faced the sense of democracy for 5 years, so we will not be afraid.
750 people.
This was Pone's world before General Min Aung Hlaing seized back power. He's a musician who is just about to release his first album. The coup crushed those dreams. We followed Pone over weeks as he took to the streets, armed with homemade shields. The military hits back this time with tear gas and rubber bullets. The next day, near Pone's house, the response is live ammunition. The horror captured on social media, the tool protesters are using to tell the world what's happening. The military has promised a new election will be held, but have refused to provide a timeline. State TV now announces each night who will be arrested next. Pone and his sister decide, like many, to flee Yangon. He's talking about joining an armed resistance.
The situation here is getting worse and worse. This might be the goodbye. Before ending this video, let me say one thing. We, the people of Myanmar, will never accept the military coup, and we will fight until the dictators burn down to hell.
Passengers from New Zealand will soon be able to travel to England without having to quarantine when they arrive. 12 other countries, including Australia and Portugal, have been added to England's so-called green list from May 17. 43 countries remain on the red list. Travellers from green list countries must pass a COVID test before they leave and on day 2 of arrival in the UK. The US is joining the Christchurch call to action to try and eliminate terrorist and violent extremist content online. The initiative was started by Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern in Paris almost 2 years ago, following the March 15 terror attacks in Christchurch. Big tech firms, including Amazon, Facebook, Google and Twitter, all signed up to the pledge, but former US President Donald Trump refused to endorse the call.
There's a new administration in Washington, and President Biden and Vice President Harris are looking at their priorities. And one of their top priorities is addressing the root causes of domestic violent extremism. And as they looked at domestic violent extremism, they realized that really this has international roots and linkages. And so it's a natural decision to join our partners in answering the Christchurch call to action.
Jacinda Ardern says she welcomes the move by the US to join the Christchurch call. Latest projections about the movement of an out-of-control Chinese rocket show it could crash back to Earth at around 7 o'clock tomorrow night, New Zealand time. Aviation authorities don't exactly know where the rocket will fall, but some experts say they could know 1 or 2 hours before it hits Earth. China has said most of the 23-ton rocket should be blown up on re-entry. A new sound has been recorded by the NASA helicopter on Mars. There you have it. Perseverance rover capturing the sounds of the wind in that tiny helicopter flying right above the surface. The 9 babies, or non-uplets, born to a woman from Mali remain in a stable condition. The 5 girls and 4 boys, who weigh between 500 grams and a kilo, still have a tough road ahead, according to doctors. Their 25-year-old mother from the city of Timbuktu is reportedly doing well. A team of 35 doctors and nurses are looking after the family. 2 previous sets of non-uplets only survived a few days. Mayor Utone Mai, stay with us. Lots of houses on the market get a fresh lick of paint, but not like this. The house that's an artwork in itself. Why it's so hard to work out what it's worth. And it's been a long time between drinks. We're with the movers and shakers making the best concoctions in the country.
And there's going to be some wet weather rolling in for Mother's Day with heavy rain and thunderstorms for parts of the south. I'll have the outlook for your place after sport.
Meet Tokyo's wild residents. Some stand...
8:45, call the midwife.
It's a crazy world, isn't it? But crazy, crazy world.
The Simpsons. Do you want the Simpsons?
Yeah, they're quite funny.
Johnny English strikes again. Is that? Do you know anything about that? Who's Johnny English?
No, I don't know. What did you do with Ron?
Well, I was still looking for my key of my car. So he took me down to the place that I bought it. And he